So you want to get that? Yeah, great.
Welcome, everybody, to the August 2015 meeting of the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you for joining us, and it's a nice warm evening. Commissioner, Director Wold, should we do roll call?
Oh, I always forget I have to do that. I'm sorry. I'm used to Sherry being here. I'm
Thank
so
you.
caught off guard. Yeah, yes, sir. Okay, so I can't see who's right here. Oh, I'll start this way. Okay, so Commissioner Akins?
Here.
Commissioner Bisaccia?
Here.
Vice Chair Walker?
Here.
Commissioner Boggs, I think you guys are sitting in front of the wrong name tags. And Commissioner, yes, you are. Commissioner Hill.
Here.
And I guess that would make this Commissioner Roney, we should say is absent, and Chair McCready.
Thank you. Here.
Thank you. So let me walk and change their name tags, please. It might be a little less confusing. How's that?
Commissioner Akins, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Akins. I don't have any green speakers request cards. I'm sorry. I guess we're going to have one.
Okay. That's right.
These are for non-agenda items, right?
Yes. That's correct. $101 outside. It's good to be in here tonight.
Can I also say, excuse me, Museum Representative Lewis is here also. My apologies.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sue Williamson, please introduce yourself and state your address.
Okay, I'm Sue Williamson, and I live in 47 Taormina
Thank you.
in
Go ahead.
Ojai. We have been hearing rumors in our neighborhood and know that some people are trying to make it a historic district. And one of the things that's come up is that I've discovered that if people are opposed, rather than having the people who are proposing this, they're not required to prove that 51% want it. It's up to, after they have proposed, then if people are against it, then 51% has to be signed saying they're against it. And I just want to point out, I think that's sort of backwards. I'd like to suggest that maybe you might change the rule, because otherwise you're going to have to go through a whole big process and put people through a big to-do, and they're not going to be able to do it in the end because 51% aren't going to be in favor of it. So it makes more logical sense to me to have them propose it and make sure they have 51%. So I just wanted to give you my 2 cents on that. I don't know if you can change your rules, if it's a possibility or not.
I'd like to invite Director Wold. I'd like to invite Director Wold to comment, if is that all right?
Sure, yeah.
Yes, right now the HPC has an ad hoc committee that's looking at the ordinance as we speak right now. That's something that they're working on, and most certainly I think Vice Chair Walker, I, and Commissioner Hill and Commissioner Boggs have been working on that, and so that is something that can be taken up and presented to the group.
Do I need to do that?
No,
or
I think
you
we
guys
can
will
do it. We can
that?
bring it
Okay.
forward. We
Yeah.
can. We've heard you.
Yeah, okay, great.
Okay, yeah.
Great. Okay,
All right,
thank you so
thank you.
much.
Thank you. Val James, please correct me if I've got that.
That's right. I've been.
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, my
and
name is Valerie James, and I live at 61 Taormina Lane, Ojai.
Thank you.
And I've been looking at historical districts in California, and I noticed in every case that when they did an architectural district, such as mid-century modern, which is 1940 to 1970, that the houses were built in the time of the style, not after the style. And that, to me, that would, because I also studied art history, so I studied history and art both, and came from a theosophical family. So to me, that would say that, I mean, a valid, authentic historical district, the architecture should be in the period that it was created. And this style here is called French Revival, and it was ended in the 1940s. So there is some revival districts, like in Riverside, which have Spanish, French, and several other revival styles. But all the houses were built between 1920 and 1940, which was when the style was actually a style. It's not, it's sort of like a copy. What you have here in Taormina is like a copy of an original. It's not actually, like a copy of a painting, not the original painting. So I just wanted to bring that up. I don't know if Ojai has different standards in all the other districts, but that's what I saw as a consistent theme. There's a mid-century modern in San Francisco. There's mid-century modern, huge mid-century modern in Palm Springs, but all the houses were built 70s prior. And so that's what makes it a mid-century modern district. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Are there any comments from any of the commissioners?
I'd like to just
Commissioner Hill?
respond to the last lady. Excuse me. And I'm very familiar with the districts in Pasadena. And Pasadena has a large collection of craftsman-style homes. In fact, the architect who designed the Libby House and designed the Robertson House on Foothill Road, he lived in a district. And his house was a beautiful craftsman house that he designed for himself. And that block had craftsman houses on it, but they also had apartment buildings that were built in the 80s. So what I'm trying to say is that what you have found in your research, there's lots of examples that that isn't so in other areas.
And not from what I've found, they're all, that's part of the historical designation, is that the architecture has to be from the
Whatever Pasadena did.
Pasadena has older houses.
Well, I know, and what I'm saying, in the midst of these older houses,
Oh, there could be 80s, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying
Commissioner?
none of these houses were built in the period of the architecture.
I see
I'm-
what you're saying.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. I can't conduct a meeting with someone in the audience.
That's right.
Thank you, thank you for your
To
comments.
answer her point.
No, thank you. If there are no further comments on that, we have the minutes from 2 of our meetings to approve. Are there any comments from the commissioners on the minutes of April 23rd, special meeting?
Do you want to do the, April 23rd?
I had none.
I have May 28th.
Excuse me, where's it? Yeah, April 23rd at?
Oh,
I have May 28th and
That's what I have.
July 9th.
July 9th.
is that a misprint? Director Wold? Consent item number 1, April 23rd, special meeting? Is that the date?
No, that's actually in the minutes. That's confusing. You're
okay.
looking at the minutes and, yeah, and it's just confusing.
Okay.
Go to the agenda.
I'm sorry, it's the
yeah.
minutes from May 28th, my
Yes.
mistake.
No problem.
I do have a question. It says that I called the meeting to order, but then it shows that Commissioner McCready is here and running the meeting, so.
Conducted the Pledge of Allegiance.
Anyway, I don't think I called that meeting to order,
No, I don't think you did.
so.
So we need to change that. Yeah, I'm sorry, good catch. Okay.
And then I had a question about,
Darwin, did you come late that day or anything?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Or he was there for, he conducted the pledge.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry, you're right.
I have a question on page 6 of 7, where it's talking about the various fees that we discussed. And my first question is, I didn't really understand what you meant here by the core fee versus a nominal fee. I don't remember discussing those terms, but what did you mean that, for example, a Mills Act application is $2,000 core fee, not deposit?
Okay, so the city operates their fees with two different distinct components of the fee. One is a core fee, which is not a deposit, non-refundable. It's just a fee, flat fee.
Okay.
You pay it, and if we run over, we don't charge you more. If you run under, we don't give you deposit back. And then, so the when it says $200 core fee, it's really just a housekeeping item of how the city keeps their fees and how they log them into the master fee schedule. So for the Mills Act annual maintenance, it would be $200 no matter what, whether it took staff longer or whether we recouped the, our costs. And so then with, when it says work permit and it says major $200 core fee and a $2,500 deposit, they would never get the $200 refunded, but the $2,500, if it took us, let's just say 4 hours, they'd get the majority of that money back.
I see.
We will operate like on an escrow account. You put the money in, we debit from it, and if we go over, we have to put more in. If we go under, you get it back.
Okay.
So it's a housekeeping item.
Okay, that makes sense, but what does nominal mean?
I don't know why that's in there, other than nominal just means named. So I don't know why and I know Ms. Herbrook isn't here to clarify, but I think that with the historic district, again, we were trying to, I would just remove the name nominal. That's kind of redundant.
Okay, and then didn't we talk about, and I just don't remember, some kind of fee for landmarking, that whoever nominated a landmark would pay a fee, whether it be a member of the community or the city or the owner of the property, that there would be some kind of
We
fee?
discussed it, but I believe that the decision was to leave landmarking as it is now with no fee, but to really trigger the Mills Act because the Mills Act has an actual benefit to it, financial benefit. And then the idea of not making the Mills Act too expensive was to defeat that economic benefit, not to make it. So we still want to encourage people. This is a carrot, not a stick. Encourage people to become landmarked. And so as I can have Sherry check the minutes, but I think the consensus was that any fee for landmarking would be an impediment, would discourage people from landmarking.
Okay. Because I think we saw that in the code, anyone can nominate a building, and so someone
Oh, you're
might-
talking about specifically if someone else did, would they have to pay?
Yeah, like
I'll
if
check the minutes.
somebody out there nominated their neighbor's house, then the city would have to go through this whole process, and...
It does seem like there was discussion on that, but I'll have her check the motion, okay?
Okay.
I think a part of the discussion was that could be a nuisance from
Right, I
a
agree.
neighbor that would, or somebody that would be just trying to trigger these fees with not really the intentions of landmarking the house.
Or if
Okay.
it was important enough for the city, for this group, the HPC, to nominate it, then there would be no charge. But if an owner nominated it, they might have to pay something because they obviously have some reason that they would like it to be that we might not necessarily agree with. I don't know. But anyway, if you could check on that.
I would
that'd
be
great.
happy to.
And then the only other thing is on the last page, there's a
Mm-hmm.
T missing at the top where it says discuss the special joint
Oh,
meeting.
yeah. Thank you, okay. So I would prefer that you not approve these minutes, let us correct them and bring them back. I know lots of times we correct them with we move to approve them with the corrections, but in this case, there's an unknown. I'd rather just have them come back and be right.
So we'll continue that.
I think we just not take an action on them, and we just
Okay.
go ahead, if that's fine.
Can I make one other comment?
Uh-huh.
It's going to be, somebody reading through this is going to be a bit confused when it shows that I'm absent at the beginning of the meeting, which I was, but made commissioner comments during the meeting.
So she needs to note that you arrived late then?
Yeah, I think that
Okay.
would be less confusing. Because
Thank
it
you.
was scheduled on the night of our museum board meeting.
I agree. I think that makes
Just-
sense. We'll put that in there. I'll put that as the caveat. Would you like that explanation?
Just a
Okay.
Yeah, we
clarification.
have to.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, I know where I was.
Well, we appreciated that you ran from one meeting to the next. That's great. All right, so then you want to move on to the next one, please? The
Yeah,
next
so
set,
item
July
2
9th?
is the meeting minutes from July 9th.
Uh-huh.
Commissioner comments or changes or corrections?
I have a couple.
Commissioner Basacha?
I usually don't look for spelling errors.
Okay, we would rather have it correct.
But-
We are not
but,
offended.
If I can find it, there's a comment by Commissioner Jagiello. I hope I'm in the right place here. Where he, I don't know where it is.
Are you in a joint meeting
Oh, yeah, yeah.
on the previous one?
So it's page 6 of 8 at the bottom.
That's on the other minutes.
Am I in the wrong place?
No, I don't think so. I think you're in the right one.
Okay, so-
Oh, no, okay, got it.
So page 6 of 8, down at the bottom, lichens is Lichens.
Oh, you're right.
Sorry, because of my plant knowledge,
It's
that
the plant,
bothers
not
me.
the, yeah, I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, the other comment I have, if I can once again find it. Oh, yeah, okay. It's on page 4 of 8. I made a comment here, and it says, Commissioner Basacha said when he did a site visit, he was surprised at how much of the house is visible from the street.
Where are we?
You're at the top of the page.
Oh, got it, okay. Is that wrong? Was it
Well-
reverse?
No. I meant to say how much of the house I found would be visible were a wall to be built if I was standing in the street. Because I went and I looked at the house and I stood in front of it and I kind of held up my hand, and I think I explained
okay.
that
Yeah.
more thoroughly in my explanation. I mean, that was the point of saying
Okay.
that. Okay.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would like to comment.
Commissioner Boggs?
On page, July 9th, page 4 of 8, almost to the bottom, it says, Matthew Silver stated, and I didn't know who Matthew Silver was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Matthew Silver is one of the contract attorneys that we use. Matthew Summers is the city attorney, so it's a typo.
Oh, we don't have two attorneys there.
No, we have a special attorney that handles some of our abatement issues. He's used very infrequently. That just happens to be his name. Maybe it came up in autocorrect, I don't know.
So
we'll-
that should be Matthew Summers.
Summers, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
pointing that out.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes, on the motions that were made regarding the gates and the fences, when you have the first time that it was presented, it correctly describes that my motion was contingent upon looking at the hedges that are there and how the height of the fence would interact with the hedges, and the fact that the hedges are oversized, as well as the proposed fence. But it didn't make it over into the final motion over on the other side,
Well,
where
I-
it says a full detailed elevation showing the relation of the height of the wall to the height of the house. And there should be something in there about how the wall interacts with the hedge and the hedge being trimmed. And even later on during the planning commission, they introduced as part of their motion to look at how trimming those bushes would affect the bushes. So they were knowledgeable about that too, that it wasn't just the wall, but it was also the hedge as well that has grown up to 12 and 13 feet and blocks the property.
I'll have to have Sherry go back. So as you know, our building and planning, senior building planning technician does the minutes. My instructions to her was to make sure that this particular item, the joint meeting, was not actually verbatim, but sections of it were verbatim, because it's very important that it be very clear, because it provides direction for the applicant. So on these motions, I asked her to do them verbatim, listen and not paraphrase, which is, they're not supposed to be paraphrasing motions at any point, but I wanted it very clear what was said. So my understanding was that listening to the tape, this is what went on, but I will ask her to look at it again.
Okay, it might be a little confusing because when the motion was first presented, it was in there, and then there was some amending of that as we went through, but it was never the intention to just drop that part of the motion that was made.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. There might have been some hanging instructions out there.
Right.
I will have her, like I said, this is really important because this provides, instruction for the applicant. So I'll have her once again re-listen to this, and then if it gets down to where there's some subjectivity to it, I'll listen to it, and then I will have the city attorney listen to it also, so we make sure
Okay.
it's good. Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we have two that need specific revisions,
Sure.
and we're fine with bringing those back, and I just
All
want
right.
them to be right for the record.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item 3.
Okay. Thank you.
This is an application for a historic landmark designation for the Ojai Adobe House located at 307A East Aliso Street.
Elisa.
Do you want to make a presentation, Director Wald?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Commissioners, before you tonight is, we're taking this a little unusual tact here with this miscellaneous permit 15-13, which is a request to have a historic landmark designation for the Ojai Adobe House located at 307A East Aliso Street. In that, as you know, we've all worked to including our training, et cetera, to work toward better documentation on the landmark, including specific character defining elements which make it a landmark property, and making sure we're documenting those properly and that we're all in consensus on what they are, and so the applicant is clear what is to be preserved, and there's appropriate record for that. So, excuse me. So we thought it was kind of a good idea, and I talked to Chair McCready about this, to kind of conduct a workshop where we kind of look at the paperwork and look at what the applicant has provided. And then, excuse me, we can make a decision on whether or not there's additional documentation that needs to be done, and whether the applicant needs to do that, or whether the city staff should do that at this point, since this kind of is new. It's kind of unfair in some regards to make an applicant, as we're trying to define our processes, to then keep asking to have them shift. So, so we have brought together with you in this packet sort of the bare bones of typical staff report, which is who it is, what they're asking, the general description. As you know, our typical criteria for landmarking provided in City of Ojai's municipal code. And then, as we often have with these, or we do always, we have a historic report in the back, which is pretty detailed and includes, once again, eligibility criteria. And so that has been distilled down to, I think, about 4 criteria that they have found that this qualifies under. And then we've lastly sort of, on page 5, talked about the notable architectural characteristics. And I think it kind of gets down to, in this particular case, I think if I can find the paragraph it is in here, really comes down to, I think it's the page on bottom of 4 of 6 and top of 5 of 6, where it talks about the Spanish Revival style. Let's see, and the frame brick and other materials, adobe construction, the scale utilized, and particular materials that were used for this particular project. So with that, I just kind of want to give you that there is a resolution in your packet, and staff is open to modifications to that resolution. We fully intend to bring this back at the very next meeting for your action. we just want to make sure that we have everything we need and we're not fumbling during a public hearing and trying to vet this out. There are photographs that were presented in the historic report. We don't know at this point if, and it's staff's kind of opinion, that it seems that with their discussions I've had with the Historic Preservation Commission and via our training, that we might want some more architectural type photographs closer in on these elements we're striving to actually preserve. As you know, when you have faraway shots, you might miss things that are underneath the eaves, or, you know, it's always a little bit hard, you know, to make sure that we're providing a document, a record that documents the landmark for 20 years down the road, because that's where that's what we, you know, is typical of what we did with the NEF. It's 20 years down the road before somebody comes in and wants to do a significant remodel. So we hope we've given you the bare bones. We've also included in here a lot of the, I did some outreach to the state of California, Sean DeCourcy, who came and gave the training. And he suggests, like he does to every other city, that we utilize the Parks and Recreation forms that are in the back of your packet here for documenting their typical standardized forms. He suggests all cities utilize. And so I'm just wish that that you would take staff's direction and have kind of a workshop with the applicants here, and I think they're historians here, and we're really privileged to have everybody here tonight to kind of want to participate in this process. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have.
Any questions for Director Wold from the commissioners? Should we invite the applicant at this time to present?
That would be great. I think that would be perfect.
Thank you.
Hi.
I'm Thais Quinn. I live in a historic landmark home at 701 Foothill in Ojai. And I understand what Commissioner Walker said about applicants applying, that there's something for the applicant. Well, yes and no for us. I feel we're stewards of these properties. I am privileged to live in the home that I live in, and I'm only a caretaker of it for the time that I'm able to be there. I do want it to be preserved, and when we saw this residence at 307 and 307A, Elisa, we used to walk past it and we said, that is a property that needs to be preserved. And we said if it ever came on the market, we would buy it. Well, guess what? It came on the market and we bought it. And so the first thing we did is talk to neighbors who said that not very long ago someone owned the property and wanted to tear it down and build something else, but they presented a petition and stopped that. And so for me, yes, I would like to get the Mills Act. I'm going to be upfront with you about that, because there's a lot of things that have to be done to that property to keep it around for future generations. So yes, I am going to apply for the Mills District if you give us this approval. However, for me, it's keeping this property where it is, because it's in a very desirable area of town. Someone could come and build a bigger house, a nicer house, or whatever. But that would cost Ojai and me something that would hurt my heart. So I would just ask you if you would look at the materials that were presented. Buenaventura Historical Research, I probably don't have your name right, sorry, Mitch, has prepared the report. They also did the report on our home that we live in, and I find them very, very thorough. And I see that this house, not only is it attractive from the architectural style and the fact that the adobe bricks came from the rectory at the church when it was down, but also of who lived in the home. So it's all in the report, and if you have any questions for me or for my husband, we would be happy to answer them. But in the meantime, I just ask you to please consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners to the applicant?
I have a question.
Commissioner Plasacha.
What is the house that you currently live in? Could you say something about it?
I would. It's the George Washington Smith home. It's House A, built as a spec house by Edward Libby in 1922. It's at the corner of El Toro and Foothill.
Oh.
And so we bought that house in 2009, and again, the first thing we thought is we need to apply for historical status to keep the house as it is. There were changes made over the years to our home interior, and in 1990, I think 7, there was an addition put on to that house, but they did it completely in keeping with the style. And so anyway, we applied and were granted historical status.
That's a great house.
I love it. Thank you.
Commissioner Boggs?
The Adobe house or duplex, the back picture shows the carport, and I see no Adobe bricks on the side of the building. So would you say that the Adobe house is like 50% Adobe or
Well, the
60%?
Yeah, the carport is not included in this application. The pictures are there because it's on the property.
Yeah.
And if we are granted the Mills Act, one of our first acts would be to put that carport in keeping with the rest of the house. But the whole house itself is, to the best of our knowledge, including the wall, it's duplex, so including the wall between the two units are Adobe bricks, but they are stuccoed over.
Now, that was built 2 years before the structure at the church was taken down.
Right, and I'd like Mitch, if he could,
Yeah.
to speak to that.
Thank you.
Rose, it says.
Please introduce yourself.
Good evening.
Thank you.
My name is Mitch Stone. I'm Sam Winterminter Research Associates in Santa Paula. Need an address also, so you can write me a letter later on? Pro forma. That was a part of the puzzle of this property, really. We found dead certain evidence that it was built from Adobe bricks that came from the rectory at the church, and that was from the recollection of someone who worked on it, actually did the work. So we had that for sure, but then we had evidence that it was completed before the rectory was demolished, which doesn't make sense, obviously. It's a matter of a couple of years. But it's also possible, since that building, the rectory was in disrepair, actually it's parish hall, I think is the correct term. The parish hall was in serious disrepair for quite a while, that it may, and that there seemed to be a move afoot to demolish it anyway, that parts of it probably became available for relocation, let's just say, a year or two before it was actually formally demolished. That's the best explanation I could come up with. Make all the facts fit together, and who knows, someone here may remember something that helps on that. We already had a little conversation about one little fact for the Castleberries, but it's impossible to completely resolve it to an absolute certainty. That's the most logical explanation I could come up with.
And that is in your report.
Yeah, that's in the report, and
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Boggs?
it says in the report that Castleberry made their home permanent in Ojai in 1946. Actually, they were here during the war years, and I was a babysitter for Rodman and his sister, and they lived on Summer Street in the corner of Blanche and Summer, the northwest corner. So there's nothing in here about the years that they were here before, and there are other people that have worked with Krishnamurti or for Krishnamurti, and I haven't seen any of them making a landmark home. My sister actually worked up at Arya Vihara, and so I'd like to know how many years they actually were here and associated with Krishnamurti.
Yes, and we had part of that conversation. Should I jump right in here or let you respond? I'm sorry. We had part of the we were here early, and the two of us had that conversation, which is only proven evidence that there's no such thing as completed historical research. Only research when you have to say you're done for now. Again, this was piecing together limited scraps of information. Knew the Castleberries had lived in Hollywood. We knew they were married in Hollywood, and I think it was 1936. We knew that Byron Castleberry had been involved with Krishnamurti from the 30s on at least, traveled with him to South America on one of his tours. So he was involved with Krishnamurti early, and we had evidence from other sources that he had been in the Ojai Valley, probably living we thought, on Krishnamurti's compound because he was working on his publications at the time. But we didn't find anything earlier than 1946 that he'd lived in Ojai. But your recollection obviously disproves that. So somewhere, maybe in the early 40s, is when they moved here, but not to this residence until, as far as we could tell, 46, because that's when he appears in the directories. And it's conceivable maybe a little earlier, but we don't know for sure. So we're within the constraints of the sources, material on that. Did make an outreach to the Castleberry family, didn't get a response, so couldn't nail it down any closer than that. They only lived there until about 1949, because then they bought a house in Miners Oaks, as so many of the Krishnamurti adherents did, closer to the ground zero for that. And so they were only there for a few years. And to respond to the other question, I think you're probably right. There's probably an awful lot of properties in the city, and way more in the valley, that are associated with Theosophy and Krishnamurti as the two main themes. None of them were listed or documented to this point, so this is the first one we tripped over, or we could say, yes, there's a connection to someone who seemed to be important to the life and work of Krishnamurti. There's probably lots of others. And whether this one's closely associated, that's really a decision for the...
Did you talk to David Mason about any of this?
I had a brief conversation with him about it, not about the Krishnamurti part of it, but about the Adobe.
Oh,
And
the Adobe.
He only remembered what we found in the files at the museum.
Oh.
So
No, I asked because, oddly enough, my ex-wife, it was the person who sold this house to the people in the audience here. And I communicated with her about this, and she had a little detail about the adobe bricks that wasn't exactly in here that she got from David Mason. So that's why I wondered if you'd picked his brain, because you might have gotten some more details from him.
I did have a conversation, and it was probably early on in the process of researching this property. And I don't recall him mentioning anything to me that was different or greater than what we were finding in the museum files, but was it something specifically that you recall?
Well, it was a fine detail, but I believe you wrote that there'd been a problem with the bricks being quote unquote smelly. And she told me that David said that they were smelly because they had manure in them, and they'd get smelly when it got hot.
Yes.
So I thought that was kind of interesting.
I did find that information in the museum files.
Maybe that's why they're painted.
The reason I can tell you really why I didn't include that, and because I heard that it's a story. If they had that problem when they were part of the parish hall, would they have been suitable for reuse in a residence? It just didn't make sense to me, but it could have been there was some kind of a coating put on them to seal them up. I don't know. There was some of those stories that didn't add up very well, so I decided it wasn't that important. But
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Akins?
Yeah, can I just add that Rodman is still here in the valley, lives on Riverside and Oakview. See him each Sunday, and the man loves to tell stories, so usually about Roman Empire, but I'm sure he could tell us a little bit about Ojai.
Son of Byron.
It is, the one that Rose
Rodman.
babysit.
Yeah.
So,
I
yeah,
didn't-
Rodman is here. He's
He still has his
still
mind?
alive and well. Still has his mind.
Yeah, I mean, he
Yes.
still remembers things and everything.
He would be my phone a friend if I was on that show. So, he's still here in town, still remembers well, so.
Well, if the commission has any specific questions that they really feel like that needs to be fleshed out, we can make that phone call too, yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner Walker?
Yes, I'd also like to say that I asked David, because he's obviously studied this issue of the bricks in the rectory and so forth, and he felt that your conclusion was probably correct, that the building had been dilapidated and that probably these bricks had been transported to use in the house before the whole thing was demolished. So he supported that idea. And as far as the Castleberries, it would be nice to talk to Rodman or Nan, because they could maybe fill in these gaps about the exact times. But Krishnamurti was kind of stranded in Ojai during the war years because of World War II, and so a lot of people that normally would have lived in Los Angeles may have come up and had part-time homes here in Ojai during that period. But in 1946, when they supposedly moved in, that was when the Happy Valley School started, and it was probably Rajagopal's inviting him up to Ojai to be the business manager that got him to come and stay permanently, if that was the term to use. So I think all those pieces that you've pulled out probably do fall in. It's just would be nice to get a family member to confirm if that's possible. But it's not really that important, I think, to the overall gist of what you're trying to do. And I agree with you that most of the homes of Theosophists and people interested in Krishnamurti they're in Miners Oaks, or they're in areas out in the East End. They're outside of the city limits, and it is unusual to find a home like that that was connected with that movement. So I think that would be very valid.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes, everybody's noting their connection to this place. I lived 2 doors down at one time to the property where you're talking about tonight. My question to you, Mitch, is that you spent some time in the report talking about this being a rare example of adobe construction, and the fact that it was late in the life of that type of architecture. And then you come to the conclusion that consequently this property appears to be a unique example of adobe construction. And then when we finally get over to the language for the plaque writing, it says, "It is the only building in Ojai constructed of adobe." If I'm not mistaken, if you go to 315 Ojai Avenue, that house also was of adobe construction. And it stood as such, this very obvious adobe house on Ojai Avenue for years. And then it was remodeled. They put a back end on this house, and they put it a second story. And at the same time, they painted all the, I don't know if they put a slip coating of plaster on it or not, but if you drive up to this building, you will see that it's indeed adobe that's been painted over. So this building is not the only, the one that you're talking about is not the only one in town, and thus, if we're talking about the landmark designation for the Ojai Adobe House, that would not be true. We'd have to come up with a better title for the house, because there being another adobe house.
Yeah, I was just looking at not to respond too quickly to what you were saying, but I think there is, under the criteria, it embodies the use of
Yeah.
that construction method.
Oh,
So-
I understand that,
So it doesn't have to be unique, but if it isn't unique, we shouldn't say it is.
yeah.
That was, again, based on the research we were able to
Right.
do. I didn't find
Right.
anything else, but I can take a look at that one too now.
I'm surprised that some of Rose and Craig and Rick, for that matter, people that have been here for a long time in Ojai, don't remember that house on Ojai Avenue.
Where is this? Could you describe it?
315.
I know, but what's it in relation
Okay,
to?
there's a new veterinarian that's located right next door to it. And what they did with the roof, they changed the roof line so that it doesn't come out to the edge. They wrapped the whole edge of the roof so it's rounded and gives a totally different look than what it was originally back in the 50s and 60s.
Is that the one near Topa Topa Drive? Are you talking about?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's right down from right near the Apple store.
Yeah, I know where it is, and if you look out that window on the side where the parking lot is, you get the most beautiful view of our mountains.
Yeah.
Are there any
Anyway, that was just some.
I think I know I'm just, as you're describing the location, I think I have a mental picture of where it is, and
Yeah.
because we did that as the citywide survey, the two
Right.
reconnaissance surveys. It gave us a little confidence that in all the buildings that we looked at as we drove around every street that we hadn't spotted an Adobe, and any other Adobes other than this
Yeah.
one. Doesn't mean there aren't any, or ones that may be partially Adobe that are much harder to discern. So it sounds to me like the changes may have disguised its appearance somewhat.
Just judging, you're talking about a building, in this case, that was constructed, what did you say, the
1941.
1941? I would bet you anything that that building was constructed around 1941 too. It seems, when we first came in 59, when I looked at that house, I thought, wow, look at that, that's an Adobe. And when I looked at it, I didn't get the idea that it was just, it just been built. Or I didn't get the idea that it was something as old as the Ventura Mission. I just suspected that it was probably built in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, well, there was that period when Adobe construction went through a little bit of a revival.
Yeah.
Didn't last very long,
No.
but there was some effort to reinvent that technique for modern use, and you don't see very much of it, and when you do, it kind of catches your eye.
Yeah. I would like to make one other comment.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes, and that's to the Quinns. I really applaud your position about wishing to be the stewards of these homes, and it's a remarkable job that you're doing. And your house is was one of the houses that we took great pride in, and you have your plaque up there, and if you walk down the street in front of your house, you can see it up there on the porch, and so we're very pleased with what you have done with your house.
Thank you. So I have a question for Director Wold. So is it the direction that we're taking with this, if we were to landmark this property, that we would be primarily landmarking the exterior? I see no photographs of the interior. Are there interior elements that are important?
Well, I think that's for discussion tonight. I think that if you look at the historic report, I think, and Mitch is standing up here, you can have him talk about this, but he does mention a few things, the cabinetry, the wood flooring, and some, let me see if I can find that in the report. But there are some things that are called out in the report, and so I think, again, this is something we want to discuss tonight. We want to get all the parameters down to where if you were going to ask Mitch to make some refinements to historic report, that's what you would do tonight. He would go back, make those refinements so that the record is complete and accurate. But do you know what page that's on, Mitch?
Sorry?
There's something where you talk
Yes.
about the interior.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
was
like-
looking, it's on our report under criterion C on page 6 of 8 of our report. It starts in the case of a nominated property found to meet the criteria for designation, and under sub 1, the features defining the character of the
Yes.
property include, so that's what you're referring to.
So he calls out significant interior features include hardwood flooring, kitchen cabinetry, and wall-mounted seating in the dining room. So I think you should have the conversation amongst yourself and with Mitch contributing whether or not he feels that that's a character-defining element that should be landmarked. That's a significant hurdle to get over tonight, whether we're talking about
Right.
interior or exterior only.
And if we were to landmark, then we would need documentation of all the interiors and so forth.
And that's what we wanted. We want to get through this tonight so that then staff can go out before the September meeting. We don't want to hold the Quinns up in any way, shape, or form. We just want to make sure this is accurate and detailed. So staff can go out and work with them to get the interior photographs and then bring it back so we can package everything up. That's what we're working towards.
And so should we, the commissioners here tonight, should we be giving them direction on how to flesh out this application?
Well, I think that you're very fortunate you have the applicant here and you have her historian or their historian. And I think you need to ask her, what are your landmarking, their application, I believe, is just for certain features, correct? I mean, you weren't considering interior, were you?
Well, I actually met this afternoon at 3 with staff, and we did go in the interior, and we did identify some features that I think Mitch would agree, the hardwood floors. There's really cute, I call them Murphy chairs in the wall in the dining room of both units. And the hardware on the doors, this is a property that really has not been ruined. One of the units has a little bit more up-to-date bathroom fixtures, probably something broke, so they went and bought new fixtures. But it pretty much exists as it did, and when you come out and look, I think you'll agree with me, but it's hard to say, and maybe Mitch can help me with this, just exactly when was this particular tile in the bathroom put in. It's old tile, you can tell it's old. Is it from 1941? I don't know. And permits in that era are pretty hard to come by, and a lot of things that were done without permit at that time. So anyway, I did meet with them. We did walk the whole entire property. We pointed at this and we pointed at that, and we talked about, and I know she'll come back with some ideas. So Mitch, if you have anything.
I would suggest that then in the near future, we set a date for the commissioners to visit the site and have a tour. And what I don't want, if we do feel that we're going to proceed with a recommendation to landmark, what I don't want to happen to this landmark, this applicant, is that we get into multiple return visits. So I would like the information to be as clear and direct as we can make it.
I'm in total agreement. That's why we're having the workshop, so that everyone can feel free to speak now and ask for additional, to be in the frame of mind that this is about a collaborative effort to get a more detailed work product. So I think then I guess the question on the floor is, if the applicant is willing to landmark certain features inside, then what the documentation would be.
Would need to be.
Right, and then, I think obviously Mitch would have to go out as the historian and provide, whether or not those really meet the criteria. I mean, staff can review his work, and we're certainly capable of reading, and just as you are, but that's not, there's no one on staff here that's a historian. So, we would need Mitch to go back out there and take a look at these things that have been identified, and then, whether or not that additional work is something that then, then necessitates pictures. I mean, because we all seem to know what we're talking about now, but remember, this is for, 20, 30 years down the road. So we want to make sure it's detailed correctly, and as you do too, I'm sure.
I do. But I do just want to add one more thing. It is a duplex and it is rented. I do have 2 tenants living in there. So one tenant is not always in town. But the other tenant is here a lot, and she's been very cooperative. She knows what we're doing, and she's happy to show it. But I'm happy to hear you say we aren't going to come back a whole lot of times.
Yeah, it's not the
and
intent.
in the meantime, if anyone wants to look, there is a website from when we purchased the property called Authentic Adobe. That's right, AuthenticAdobe.com. Yeah, AuthenticAdobe.com, which has tons of interior pictures that you might want to look at ahead of time so that you're familiar. It also has some different pictures than what's in the report. And I'm available. I'm here all the time. Bob's here all the time. So we are available if you have questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, one of the things that has caused a lot of confusion and I think questioning on the part of some of the previous applications that we've had and landmarking agreements is that when we talk about the character-defining features, those are the items that we don't want to see changed. That if a red tile roof is one of the character-defining, then we'd like to be able to come back in 50 years and still see a red tile roof there. However, the Secretary of the Interior standards also say that on the property, any new, and our law too, our ordinance says any new construction, any alterations need to be reviewed to make sure that those changes are compatible. And I think that needs to be written into this resolution so that everyone understands that even though that garage might not be character defining and historic, that if a future owner wants to tear that down, that's fine. But if they want to put up something that's incompatible with the house, it would have to come before us to talk about that, because there's a whole effect of the house, and it needs to be understood that if you build a fence or if you if you change the garage, we're not saying you can't do that. We're just saying that it has to be compatible architecturally and historically. And maybe, Mitch, you could comment on that too, as part of what the Secretary of the Interior standards do ask for.
Well, as you know, the standards cover a whole lot of topics in a very general, broad brush way with lots of terminology that can be interpreted in a variety of fashions. But I think in general what you're saying is true, and that you do want to see some compatibility, scale materials, massing, things of that kind. What design solutions that actually tells you should use is always a little bit more of a debatable concept, but that actually achieves those things. The other part of that, your question, I think, is more your commission's policy, really, as far as what you see as being the confines of a landmark. In this case, the property is the landmark, but the contributing features are what? And so that's the question, I think, when you have a landmark property with only certain features that are contributing, what's the significance of the other part, and what then do you allow on the rest of that property? Seeking conformance with the Secretary's standards, I think, is a good general way of addressing all of that, so that you can't answer those questions for the future, but you know what standard you're looking at to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Yes, and I'd like to address this to Ms. Wold. Now, who is going to, you put this packet of forms back here that the state provided you with. Who is going to fill out these forms, and when do we see these?
All right, so our thoughts, or staff's thoughts at this time, was that staff would do this to the best of our ability, fill out these things. Maybe we would have to consult with the historian to do this. We would have to have some, depending on what you delineated as a character-defining attribute, we would want to have a photograph or something of that particular attribute, as opposed to these sort of, faraway pictures that don't provide detail. So we were looking for this to be an accurate record. So we would do that, and we would try to get this done before the next meeting, or if we needed additional time, we were hoping we could get them back before the commission in September. If not, it took a little extra time, maybe October, but we wanted to have this record so that it's very clear on what's getting landmarked. We want this record to be something that you have vetted out, so that when it goes forward to City Council for landmarking, they are the final body taking action. There's consensus between us and the applicants that are asking to be landmarked, and that, it's basically just something that then the council could either approve or, It's not a work in progress, which often, sometimes these things are a work in progress. That's the reason for the workshop. So the first thing I would like you to do is look at these. These are these records that come off of the Parks and Recreation's website, which is what the folks that gave you your training, they suggested we use these because they're used, they're like a standardized form used throughout communities in California. If you don't like this format, we can certainly do something else. I mean, obviously, the idea with this is to have kind of forms that would be consistent, every time. And so, again, we're trying to take what is a generalized paragraph in the historic report, which says, adobe walls and floors and things like that, and break each one of those character-defining elements down to a page in and of themselves, in which we're saying floors, and then you write down, well, what are the wood floors, and what rooms are the wood floors, what are they made of, and what is the color of them, and how do you want them to preserve them? This is to avoid this issue that we had with, we all know, with the Neff Lounge, where you're saying, well, what is the exterior wall, and what didn't we want to have happen? This is then once we put this in writing and it's given to the applicant, if they have issues with that, then that's what the public hearing would be for. Would be to say, well, I have issues with you. This is too restrictive to what I want to do with the property, or I don't think this is an element. But at this point, just having a broad statement of flooring in here, it leaves it up for interpretation to whoever comes, 10, 15, 20, 25 years afterwards, whether the intent was to preserve all wood floors in every room, or cabinetry, the bathroom cabinetry, the kitchen cabinetry. I think that he might have delineated kitchen cabinetry. So that's just kind of where we are, and like I said, we're not trying to make it difficult for anybody, we're just trying to make it thorough and complete. So I think the first thing I'd like you to look at is those forms and see whether or not you want to use those forms, or you'd like a different format.
Commissioner Walker?
Well, I think it would be a good idea to use these forms, because I think if ever we have a property that then wants to be nominated for the state register or the national
Correct.
register, this is what they'll want to see.
This is what they do. Mhm.
So if we follow these or have these filled out right from the beginning, then it'll make that process easier.
Are all of these forms germane to the property? I'm looking at
I don't think
the
so.
milling station record and the rock art and how much patina is on the rock, and some of these things look a little bit cumbersome, and you might be able to skip some of those.
Yeah, they're not all applicable. We gave you all of them, so you kind of get an idea of, they pretty much have a form for everything you could think of. And so it's already, we don't need to spend staff time recreating something that the state has already done. But yes, he is exactly right. You look at the types that are here, and they have something for everything. So some would be applicable, and many times over, if we're going to do a photographic record, and we're going to say whatever it is, or we're going to, and we can always ask Mitch for his assistance too, I'm sure, that has been very helpful in the process. But it's just being very clear about what we're landmarking and what needs to be preserved and not altered, and what, if they are presenting for something to be constructed or new constructed, what is the parameters, as he said earlier, that you would allow that under. And so make the record. We're not going to get this perfect. Certainly, we're not trying to make it so cumbersome because we're striving for perfection. We're just trying to make the record a little bit more complete.
Here's what I suggest we do. Between now and our September meeting, that we have a site visit, and that would give the commissioners an opportunity to see the potential landmark and also review these forms.
Okay.
And then at our September meeting, we could discuss this further and hone it further, and hopefully make a motion at our October meeting.
Would you like to ask the applicants if that's time schedule will work for them?
Will that, Julie? What? You have to come to the podium.
Obviously, if this is what you want to do, it's going to work for us. We're going to make it work. It seems like it's not exactly timely, but I understand you're in a process of flux and trying to, think of how you want to do this for the future, so we can make it work. But we do have a vacation planned in October. But your meeting would be towards the beginning of the month, is that correct?
Yes, it's always the second Thursday of the month.
I think we'll be here, but I'd have to look at my calendar.
Director Walt?
Chair McCready, could you inquire the applicant as to why they're not pursuing their Mills Act now? And, I mean, you can do them concurrently, you know.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes, I mean, that's what I could, does anybody oppose to doing that, doing the Mills Act and the landmarking at the same time, since this will be fresh and, I mean, we could offer that to the applicant to help her with her time so that you wouldn't have to be coming back through, I'm sorry, because part of doing all this character defining and all these things that we're gonna delineate out here is kind of the work I think that we need to do also with her regarding her Mills Act application, because it's gonna go hand in hand if we're gonna identify things. At the same time, if we had in our thought process, I'm gonna identify these things and I'm gonna talk about what you want to do to them. It's all the same, two halves of the same conversation. So while we might be taking longer, we might be able to get her further in the process by combining them. Is that kind of an offer
I think
that's on the table?
Did that make sense?
Oh, I would be happy to do it. I guess I would need a little bit of, I know the staff did recommend approval of historical designation, but since there is a fee involved, I just heard earlier, but I'd be happy to do it.
No, I'm sorry. Let me clarify that for you, okay?
Okay.
The fees that we talked about earlier were the fees that the HPC was proposing to the
see.
City Council. They have
I
not
see.
been adopted yet.
Okay,
So
thank
those
you.
were what we were proposing, so I'm sorry if that was confusing to you. But no, that was a completely separate item. I don't believe at this point City Council has adopted those fees, but I would be happy to check with you and give you a call tomorrow and let you know what the fee would be for Mills Act. But I think if even if we know she is considering going through a Mills Act, we need to have this in the back of our mind so that part of the work we're doing and doing these character defining things and establishing what we want preserved, that we have a long-term, thought process on what needs to be maintained and how it's maintained, because it just seems to go hand in hand at this point anyway.
Thank you. When, pardon me, when and how soon do you think we could schedule a site visit?
I think just about any time.
Okay. What I'd like to suggest is that maybe you suggest, say, 3 potential dates and times to Director Wold so that we can get a consensus on the commission.
How soon would you want to come?
So let me explain this process to you. If they all come out and it's a site visit for all of them at once, it's a noticed meeting, the public needs to come too. So, it's just open to the public. Anytime there is a quorum here, more than 3, we have to notice it and open it up. So you would have to give us enough time that they could go in increments of 3, not 4. So you'd have 1 extra person there, or 2. You could do 2, 2, and 3. But at any time there's over 3, then
Really?
it's a whole, yes, it's a whole new game. Now, I don't imagine you want to open the Adobes up to the public.
Well, I just am thinking of the impact on my tenants.
That's what I'm saying, correct.
So, could it be in the same day, at different
Yes.
times of the same day?
Yes, they just can't. Yes, I just
Yes.
want to make sure, yes.
And then, again, we're going to be on vacation, not this coming week, but the following week. So I'm just wondering, is next week too soon?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Not
okay,
unless
thank
we
you.
would need to notice it, and it's
Okay.
not under those parameters.
All right, I'll check with her, and I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Thank
That'd
you.
be great.
And thank you for your interest in landmarking and being so nice.
So could I also make a suggestion that, because I didn't get a lot of critiques on the staff report of the resolution, could we take some time right now to look at the resolution?
Yes.
So I just want to go back to page 3 of 4. Actually it starts on page, I guess, 1 of the resolution. So would we be looking to take the resolution generally, what we've always done in the past, and then add these papers that we have here these primary records, whichever ones we choose to use, whichever ones really are appropriate, and then add them as attachments so it becomes just embedded into the resolution. So instead of a narrative describing these things, we would have those records. Is that how we're looking, or do you want me to? I'm just a little. I need some direction, and because the resolution becomes the legal document of what is landmarked. It really does. We can talk about this all night long.
Right.
We can make a motion, and then we do this resolution. The resolution goes up to city council.
Right.
It needs to have all those bits and parts you think are really important to it in that resolution, and then we have to make sure that the resolution that they adopt has the same things in it, because they are the final body. So we want to make sure that this has this vertical continuity to it. So I'm just wondering what changes I can make to the resolution to ensure that what you say to me and those things. So what's in the historic report? The resolution is the most important thing. So I just want to make sure that that what parts you
How
want
we structure it.
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Well, at the bottom of 3 of 4, you do say, whereas Exhibit A lists the defining characteristics, so would these sheets be an Exhibit
That's what I'd like.
A? And then the list you had of the character-defining features, those would be, I mean, all that could be contained in Exhibit A. I recall that was done when we had the gatehouse. I was looking at that resolution, and it was similar. It had an Exhibit A.
Is that a good example?
Yeah, it had
Okay.
an exhibit that spelled out all of this more clearly, and those papers that you pointed out from the state could be attached as part of Exhibit A.
Do you see attachment E where we have started this list? And we kind of did one of these, just kind of bullet point lists, the architecture, the roof, the tile vents, casement windows, wood door. Then I'd like to take each one of these in the bullet list and make a sheet for it, and then have a photograph and a description that goes with that bullet list. Does that seem?
Yes.
Like that's complete enough record?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, I am done. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure, yes. I'm sorry, I'm acting like chair, excuse me.
Commissioner Akins?
I just had one question. I'm looking at the spelling of Rodman's name and it doesn't have a hyphen. I'm just wondering why his mother had a hyphen between Castle and Berry in the report.
It shouldn't have a hyphen.
Historic report or
Well,
staff
actually,
report?
in the motion that we're going to put to the city, it's hyphenated.
Oh, it could be just in the resolution you're talking about?
Yes.
Attachment A, page 2 of 4.
Okay.
It's a typo.
Well, it's a typo that I think is carried forward throughout the whole segment. So,
So where am I looking at? Oh, where it says,
Mignon, Reed, Castleberry, and there's a hyphen
Yeah.
between Castle and Berry.
I
The
think
line
that's-
above it
Oh.
is different.
It's a typo, I think.
okay, I'll make
Because
sure.
I'm looking at the spelling within our church records, and
Okay.
there's no hyphen.
While you're,
That, thank
while
you.
you're on that page, the next sentence says that the Castleberries were here through the connection to Theosophy and Crotona. Krishnamurti broke away from the Theosophical people. And I'm just wondering when that happened. But he did not want to be associated with them because they wanted to make him like a guru. And if you know him, he was not wanting to do that. So I don't know if Theosophy and Crotona should even be in there.
Well, I think a lot of these people came originally because they were Theosophists,
Yes.
and then Krishnamurti broke away in 1929.
What was 29?
And many of them just kind of followed him out of the association with the Theosophical Society, but many of them kind of did both. So I think it's correct to put that this represents all of that, But I would like, I don't know if I'm the only one, but I would like to see in the resolution this distinction made between preserving the character-defining features that are listed, but also reviewing any other changes to the property for compatibility with the landmark.
You want that as a condition of approval, the landmark
Yes.
status?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can put whereas that's even stated in our law.
So can I just ask you, so do you want to see fencing, patios, garage structures, accessory structures, landscaping? I mean, at what point do they not need to
Well,
come?
what's stated in the law is any construction, alteration, I mean, it's just the way it's written in the law. If there's,
I know, but the laws we
unless it's
have,
called out, I mean, if it's called out like it was at the Libby House, the landscaping and so forth, then that should be one of the things that's looked at. But it does say in our rules, the construction, so if the example would be like the garage. It's fine if they want to tear the garage down, but if they want to build something else there, that's a new construction, and it should come before the commission to have a conversation about the compatibility of that with the landmark on the property. Not that they can't do it.
so you're not interested in landscaping then? That's not construction. You're just saying, and fencing doesn't require a permit, but you're saying.
But it should be on here anyway, because even when you, when they talk about the things that might not require a permit, but still should be covered, I think that should be included. Any construction that might impact the visual and the historic look of the property should be brought back.
Well, I'm just trying to make it very clear for them because, obviously, we're all not going to be here 20 years from now, and what somebody thinks might impact might be different. I mean, that's a very subjective word. So I just want to make sure that I'm bringing back to you what you want. So if you would like a bullet list of including but not limited to, I can provide that.
Okay.
You want it
'cause
just to
I
say.
think Mitch even started it on his
Yeah,
report where he
okay.
talked about things that might not require a permit, but would need to be reviewed.
Okay.
And I think the city ordinance says anything that's new construction, any alterations.
Right, to a landmark.
To a
And
landmark.
that's where the difference of kind of the rub comes, is because if we just landmark the house, then it's really technically not construction to the landmark.
But
So-
the property is part of the landmark.
Well, I understand, and I understand that, and believe you me, I'm not trying to be nitpicky about this, I'm just trying to explain to you that I want it being very clear that if we're landmarking the whole property, that then any construction, if we're just doing the house, then that's where I think the difference of opinion comes. Like, if we're just doing the house, then we might not bring something back to you that is not one of the items specifically landmarked.
Well, then you should, because if you're landmarking the house, you're basically saying the house will be preserved. This house is what
Correct.
we're going to preserve. But the other features of the property are things that would impact the look and feel of the house.
I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have a
I mean,
opinion.
that's in the Secretary of the Interior standards, so, and it's in our municipal code as well, so I think that we should include that so that
Okay.
people who buy this house down the road understand that we're not saying you can't alter your garage, you just have to come and bring it for review to make sure that
Right,
it
you
doesn't
can't have a
detract
mid-century garage with,
Right.
with an adobe house. It's
Exactly.
very clear that we wouldn't, and so we want to, the review of these items that aren't landmarked would be limited to compatibility.
Exactly.
I got it. I think I can bring that back to you.
Okay.
Commissioner Hill?
Yes. Now we get to with this resolution, you get to the nomenclature of what to call this house. And you're designated in several places in this, you're calling it the designation of the Adobe house. And you're going to have to name it.
You mean the applicant is?
Yeah, somebody's going to have to name it. Now, usually what we do is name it by the first owner, the person that had the house built, or by its builder.
Or the significant,
Or yeah,
you could call
Well,
it the Castleberry.
yeah.
I do
Go ahead.
understand that you did point out there's another Adobe house, but is the name not Ojai Adobe House still okay? Because if we're not saying Ojai
Well, now you have
only,
two Adobe houses.
but this is this Adobe house, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to clarify so that I know if I have to start thinking about it, what my parameters would be.
Might
think
be,
I would-
might be Aliso Adobe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aliso
Call it
Street
by the
Adobe.
street.
Be fine with me.
Yeah.
And then could I just make one more comment about what Commissioner Walker said? You know, I totally agree with you about the garage. If we decide to change it, we definitely would want it to be in keeping. But, you know, there's somebody else, or someone, I'm not sure who, said fencing. Well, there's chain link fences on that property that I would like to not have be there, and I would like to have it be more in keeping with the property. So my question is, if I want to take out the chain link fences that are there that don't look very nice, then am I then going to have to go through a process to get approval to do that just because it already exists? So I'm just asking.
The answer is yes. And we would review your proposal for a new fence material and design for compatibility with the landmark.
I think it would only be any new construction that you did. If that object wasn't part of the landmark and you decided to remove it, it wouldn't be, I mean, and it's not a contributing feature, it's not anything written into it, that wouldn't be a problem. It's just if you build something new there, then we'd want to look at it and see whether it was compatible with what you've got in terms of the landmark. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mitch, do you want to call me?
Mitch?
You got me thinking here. I just wanted to comment on this quickly. There's nothing in the big book of rules that says a historic property has to have more than an address as its historic name. I think it's perfectly reasonable to call it, for purposes of its designation, 307, 307A East Aliso Street, and not worry about having a proper name for it that's different. And all the surveys that we've done over the years, lots of times, that's the historic name. And if you look at your DPR form set that has been provided to you by the state, there's this place in there for historic name and common name, and sometimes they are the same. Common name's usually the address. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't
that
get
would
too
work.
tied up in that one. That one's.
That would work. Just call it
The address.
yeah.
And if you're putting up a plaque, the plaque can explain the history as to why it's important. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be embedded in the name. That's just my.
Yeah, but it couldn't, in the plaque, we would have to correct it as being not the only.
If it's not that exemplary, yeah, that would have to be clarified, sure.
Director Walt?
Can I, so how would the commission feel about if the applicant already has in their mind a work program that would include removing the chain link fence and providing something else, if she were to, or they, excuse me, were to present that as part of their Mills Act 10-year program, and you reviewed that as part of the Mills Act, rather than making her come back again? I mean,
That's a
you could
great
offer
idea.
that to her. Okay. So
Thank
do you
you.
understand what I'm saying? Because I think that if she has in her mind what she wants to do in the next 10 years, but you're not going to do it all at once, that can be part of the program. You guys can bless it, so to speak, approve it, and then she can just work for 10 years without having to come back.
And that enables us to make it as easy and
Right, I think that
seamless
might
on
be-
the applicant as we can.
Okay.
So we're with you. Any other comments or questions on this item from the commissioners? Commissioner Boggs?
There, there are 2 olive trees in front of the property. Now, they look like they're pretty old, too. So would there be a problem if the owner wanted to cut those down?
Well, olive trees are not protected on residential
That's right.
property. They would be if it was commercial, so, I mean, I guess you can talk to
It's another
that.
reason for a site visit.
Yes.
And I
Commissioner-
would say only if the olive trees were called out in your historic report. If it was said, we should not touch these olive trees because they were planted by Krishnamurti or something, then that could be part of it.
And
But
you can see
if
them in this picture.
otherwise, I think, it's,
I think they were little when I lived there.
Okay,
And
thank you.
I think she can put that in her 10-year program, whether she intends to change the landscaping. If she intends to change landscaping and go from a Mediterranean field to something else, you certainly can review it.
Thank you for your time and your interest. We are pledging to work with you and make this as painless and fun as possible. So thank you for your
Can I
time.
make one more comment?
Commissioner Akins?
Before Mitch leaves? One of the things that, I kind of straddle a line here with my cohort, Mark Lewis, in being part of the museum as well as the Historic Preservation Commission. We ran into Judy Treem. I have no idea what day it was, this week or last week. We got Councilor Mayor Pro Tem Blatz out here, so it's a pitch to him. We at the museum kind of try to be the repository for studies. Judy was in our library looking for something on one of the schools in town. We approached Judy about sending us copies of the reports that have been done by the San Buenaventura Research Associates. I think I got that right. And she shortly sent us 6 studies that had been done in a digital format, which, I love digital, but of course we're printing them out and putting them in a binder for non-digital people. But again, we want to thank San Buenaventura Research Associates for sharing those with us. They're reports that were done here in the Valley, similar to the report that was done for your property. Again, because we, and being supported by the city, try to bill ourselves as the repository for all things historic. And so we appreciate her sending those to us and having them to us, making them available for us to keep and share in the future.
Thank you, and we've got more of that coming too. Because
I can't wait.
We're delighted to be able to share that stuff, because we're always afraid that it goes to some file and nobody ever sees it again.
I will tell you, when we've done training down at USC, I was down there, we had the Los Angeles Conservancy speaker. I asked him, are you the repository of information? And he said, no, we're not. I said, well, where do you get your information? Well, we just kind of search around and find things. And that's one of the ways, but Google doesn't know everything yet. So again, we appreciate your sharing with us so that, we have that partnership.
Certainly our pleasure to do that.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, recommendations for our annual Historic Preservation Award. I want to open the discussion for the commissioners to identify potential candidates for the Historic Preservation Award for 2015. Director Wold, when do we typically make this decision? Do you know which month? I don't remember.
It seemed like last year we did it in December. Yes, the presentation is in December to City Council. And so it takes us, usually we start thinking about it this month, and then, you get your nominations, and then somebody has to write a bio on them. So I think that we just kind of get the ball rolling at this, and then kind of carry it through for a couple of meetings. So Sherry so reminded me to put this on this month to get you guys thinking about it. So the award is actually in December.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, I went down through the list here, and I would just like to float some possible names, not necessarily nominate anybody, but one of the things that came to mind was under the protection of historic or prehistoric archaeological sites was Julie Tumamite. She's already received the award, but I thought possibly maybe we could consider her for a Lifetime Achievement Award because of all the work she's done over the years, not only to promote the Chumash culture, to work in the schools, work in the museum, but also right now engaged in trying to educate all of us as to the protection of those. Another one was Elise Dupuy, who did a fabulous exhibit at the museum on the history of the Ojai Theater, and she did a book on architecture and fountains of Ojai, and she's now working on helping to update Patty Fry's book and just doing an amazing research job. So she might be someone. Of course, Mark Lewis, in his unending digging into Ojai's history has just furthered the whole consciousness of Ojai history and its importance, so that would be a name. And I also think that Khaled, for making the decision to preserve that building instead of tearing it down, which probably it could have easily been torn down because of the terrible shape it was in, and his commitment. Those are just some names that sprung to my mind. Other people probably have.
I think there's some good ones.
Do we want to
Okay.
discuss it further, or do you want to give everybody time and bring it back again for next month, or do you want to?
I'd like to bring it back next month,
Okay.
and that gives us time to consider these names and think of others.
Okay, so we'll try to repeat this. I think what we'll do is we'll just repeat the same information back in your packet next month with a cover memo with your indication of the ones you've nominated. All right, and yeah, just so that we continue to add on to it or think about it, but I don't want those names to go by the wayside, so we'll bring that forward.
Can I just make one comment? Did any of you hear the speech that Khaled gave on the 4th of July at the Bowl? He is a magnificent, brilliant person, and it was the kind of speech that some really, really famous, enormously respected person would have told. It was just amazing, and it was all positive. It was very, very good.
Thank you. Item 5, we're reviewing the pennant policy remarks that Director Wold has put together for us to take to council. And this will be our last pass at this. Am I correct? Yes.
Well,
We hope.
it's really up to you folks,
Yes.
but yes, we're hoping this will be the last pass.
So if-
We
are
do
there-
need to take it forward. You know, it was, I
Yes.
think, back in February where City Council gave you an opportunity, so we're a little bit behind the time in getting it back up to them, but
Yes.
still within reasonable.
So if there are any comments or corrections from the commissioners on the material that Director Wold has placed in the record, then now is the time.
The only thing I have to say is that when it is presented to the council, I would like to be there so that I can explain some things.
Thank you.
I think that the changes to the pennant are very clear. I mean, I think those we're pretty set on. I think that Commissioner Boggs is correct, is that the only thing that you may want to add is the rationale behind why the decision is to do something. And I don't know if you wanted to provide me any comments on that I can include in my staff report. Because some of the, I think that we made changes as we did look at it, and you did make changes. But I think the other issue was, yeah, I think the one that still remains possibly to need some additional explanation is the one where it was only pennants only, nothing else. And then, why, we're allowing the lanterns to stay, but I think you put in there, at such time that design is proposed for redesign shall be allowed to display. So you're allowing them to keep it, but if it's redesigned, then they can't keep it. And I think maybe you might want to provide some information on that. That's all, just those types of things.
I think that they said, I think what we meant to say was that if they want to change their design, then they would come back before the commission.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
Am I correct in that, Commissioner Walker?
I was the one that asked for this to come back one more time because I did feel it was important for us to give the rationale
Okay.
for these, so I did take some time to write down what I felt was the rationale, so that, because sometimes if you just read these out of context, they seem somewhat arbitrary, but I think that there's a reason behind them that we felt strongly about, so I don't know if you want me just to give you this or
I think
read it.
Chair, do you want him to read it into the record, or do you want him just to
Why don't you go ahead and read it into the record? And then
Okay.
we can give that
Can
copy to her.
decide. I put the reason the HPC reviews signage and decorations for historic landmarks is to ensure that these add-ons are compatible with the historic and architectural significance of the buildings and do not detract from their integrity. 1, only pennants should be allowed to decorate the arcade, post office, and pergola. Pennants are historically compatible with these 1917 structures. Lanterns, mechanical devices, twinkle lights, etc. are not compatible and would negatively impact the architectural and historical integrity of the building. And I think that's kind of what we all felt. Number 2, pennant decoration should not cover Ojai's landmarks on an ongoing basis. Over time, the presence of decorative pennants will impact the architectural and historic integrity of the structures. Pennants should be limited to a few traditional Ojai events, so a maximum of 10 events should be allowed. Including the 6 weeks when Christmas lanterns hang in the arcade, this policy will allow decorations to hang in the arcade for half the year. The rest of the year, the downtown buildings should retain their architectural and historical integrity. And I think that's kind of what we felt, that we didn't want it just to always be decorated, that would impact. So we wanted it to be limited, and we talked about half the year, which is why we picked the 10 events. Number 3, the pennants are meant to decorate the downtown buildings when a special event is being held in the park or in the downtown historic district, the music festival, Ojai Day, the tennis tournament, art in the park, etc. Pennants were never intended to advertise a product, a business, or an event held elsewhere. Since use of pennants is limited to 10 events, they should be limited to special events in the downtown area. The banner across Ojai Avenue is for advertising events and nonprofit organizations. And I think that we felt
That's the big one
that,
that goes over the street.
yeah, so the banner is there to advertise the wine festival or to advertise Besson Hill School or other things, but that these pennants should be for decorating the downtown for a special event. And number 4, once a design has been approved by the HPC, there need be no further review by the HPC unless the event or the pennant design changes. The planning desk can check the banners and materials. So we wanted to make that point that once approved, they don't have to keep bringing it
Right.
back to us. And then I just put at the bottom, currently approved pennants that do not meet the above guidelines may continue until a new design is submitted.
Correct.
So that fell into the point, well, we had already approved the lanterns, even though it was for one event, I understand it was some anniversary, but we won't go into that. It had been approved, and so they've built their banners or pennants around that so they can continue until such time as they need to bring in a new design, and then we'll look at the policy or whatever the council comes up with. So I don't know, does that?
Sounds perfect.
I think it's a good explanation.
So can we have consensus from everybody that you want that to go forward as a Historic Preservation Commission rationale?
Yes.
Thank you.
I would like to ask a question then. Will you explain for me the last paragraph that you have in the policy, and that's the business about the Pixie Tangerine? You have a sentence after discussion. The very last thing.
Oh, I think that's just minutes. This is just kind of an overall going through the pennant policy. And obviously, the preface that says Ms. Wold went through the pennant policy is not going to be part of the policy. And this at the end, it says, after discussion about Pixie Tangerine Month, pennant sponsored by the Visitor Center, the commission decided to allow them for display only if there is an event associated with the pennant advertisement. So that's Sherry's minutes, that's her describing the minutes, and what you were saying is, you're fine with, I think that is kind of confusing, a little wordy, but what I recall was that you're fine if the Pixie Tangerine have an event downtown, you would consider the pennants.
Oh, yeah.
That's what that is trying to say. It's trying to say is that after discussion, you said you would allow them only if there is an event associated with the Peanuts. So if they were to have a downtown event, you would reconsider them. Is that correct? That's my understanding of what the decision was made.
Right, but I think the problem is that it went to the council and the council approved those pennants. So that's why I put in mind that if it had already been approved,
Okay.
then, but I don't know if that's the feeling of this group.
Well, I don't think that this isn't going to go forward. This last sentence here doesn't need to go forward to anybody. This was just for you to consider what you said that day, and if you wanted any additional changes. But I think the 1 through 13 are good. I think we can put the rationale in, and then you're fine.
Although
Then I think item number 1 does cover that it should be for an event in the city
Right.
of Ojai.
Yeah, for special events.
But yes, and I think that was just an idea of clarifying that you have no particular argument with the Pixie Tangerines once they have an event.
Right.
Yeah, from a number thing, we're allowing 10 groups to do it. There's only 7 that are stipulated so far, so we're just saying they can get in line if they have an event, like anyone else, so.
Right.
Right.
That's all we're saying.
Well, they're part
Right.
of the 7, right?
I don't think so.
I don't have that material in front of me, but I can check and let you know.
Yeah, I didn't think they were part of the 7 because they don't have an event.
Okay.
So, but I could be wrong.
Commissioner Walker?
That was my
Yeah, I
understanding.
did have a couple of questions just about the wording. First of all, number 4 and number 9 seem to be incompatible, because 4 says that all pennant designs shall meet the arcade design guidelines, and 9 says pennants may deviate from the requirements of the arcade design guidelines. So I'm just wondering if we even need number 4, where we just say that they may deviate, but they just have to come before the commission and the council on appeal. So I don't even know if we need 4, because it seems to contradict 9. And then number 7, the red part at the top of it, I'm not even sure on the wording on this. It says pennants shall be placed on the calendar for open available weeks, not already approved pennants for that week. And it seems a little.
I think it's missing the word "for,"
Awkward.
not already approved for pennants that week. The 4 is in the wrong spot.
And then the same with number 12. It says, unless previously approved and at such time that design is proposed for redesign shall be allowed to display. I don't even
Yeah, I know.
understand what
I
that
hope.
means.
Yeah, but that's talking about the lanterns we just talked about.
I know.
So we can correct the language, again, when the motion is what the motion is, we can't then change it, we can't wordsmith it. So if you don't like that wording, we can go ahead and make it, we don't adjust our commissions or boards' motions. That is what you approve. So that is, I had Sherry do this verbatim, and that's really important, because you choose your words really carefully. You don't want staff then changing them.
But again, we just said the lanterns are okay, unless they come up with a new design, then they would have to come back to us again. And I think
Okay.
that's
I
what
think
this
that's what
sentence
this
is saying.
says.
It's what it says, but it's just a little.
I think that it's
Yeah.
missing the word "not." Let's try this out. The pennant policy allows for pennants and nothing else. Flags, lanterns, and other decorative items are expressly prohibited unless previously approved, and at such time the design is proposed for redesign shall not be allowed to be displayed. I think there's just some words missing.
Okay.
I mean, you're correct? Isn't that just,
Yeah,
you're just
maybe a
saying shall not
comma
be
after
allowed
approved,
to be displayed?
a comma after approved and to be displayed, that would do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And do you want staff to strike 4 before we take this up to city council then?
Commissioner Walker?
Maybe we should combine 4 and 9 and say, all pennant designs shall meet the arcade design guidelines except when deviations are approved by the historic, I guess it's redundant because they're going to come here no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just completely redundant. So you want to allow, so we're going to take off number 4 then?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I'll eliminate it.
Thank you.
Okay. And I would like your comments so that I can, if you don't mind. I would appreciate that. Thank you. If you've already got them typed out, I can make sure that clerical
No,
staff
I
gets
can
it
send them to you.
verbatim.
I'll
That would be
s-
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.
Okay, so before you tonight is,
Go ahead.
go ahead, I'm sorry, is the Ojai Valley's interpretive plan. As you know, we all know the work that was done at the inn, and as a condition of approval, they had, Mitch was here, and we should have asked him this before he left, but it had a condition on there that was found in the historic report about this interpretive plan. So, so they have done that, and we asked for, as you know, Mitch Stone was the historian preservation professional that was hired to prepare the interpretive plan. In addition, staff, the inn asked that staff reach out to the commission and ask one of the commissioners to help review the plan. Commissioner Walker volunteered and met with the inn, I think it was July 2nd. And I have provided for you his comments inside the staff report. So based on Commissioner Walker's comments and the interpretive plan, staff has approved this plan. We think that it meets everything that Commissioner Walker wanted. We're providing it tonight for you as a matter of a informational item. They have not finished all these items. I mean, obviously, they're in process. We have not signed off on their final certificate of occupancy because they have not completed them. So, we still have implementation to complete, but we wanted to provide the interpretive plan for you. And this is sent to me via email. I'm going to request that they put it in a more presentable format. I apologize, it's kind of in an email format, but I think that it'll give you a good idea of what's going on and what they intend to include in the interpretive plan. And I'm open for any questions that you may have.
So
Commissioner Walker?
Will we get to see the plaque text before we approve it and the picture collage they're going to do for the wall? Will we get to look at that?
Sure. I can bring that forward. They have some timeframes in here. I think they have. Okay, so let's turn to page 7 of 8. The next steps, it says was for you to provide feedback, which you did. I would say staff really left this between the commissioner, the historian, and what requirements. So I didn't really weigh in very heavily on this because it seemed like we already had experts doing such. So Mitch will write the plaque and narrative and provide it to him by 8/7. So I think, and then he's going to collect images by 8/14. So I think that's tomorrow. So would you like me to reach out to him? Then how about we do that together, reach out to Mitch, and then ask him about the plaque language and make sure that we're looking at so we'll just ask him to forward this information.
Yeah, and then also he says that the old plaque would be moved to the south wall, but I think he means the east wall, because the south wall is just out on the back patio, but I think they talked about moving it to the east wall where when you walk in from that new little patio off to the side.
Oh, okay.
It
Is that a
would be there.
typo?
I think he
Okay.
just wrote south, but he may have meant, because even on one of the pictures here, on the number 6, he shows that view of the east wall.
Yes, he does. It would seem more appropriate on that because it's a nice kind of presentation as you walk in now. Okay, so I will reach out to him tomorrow. So are there any other comments about anything?
Commissioner Hill?
Yes. In regards to the images, I don't know what bank of material that they're drawing from, but there is an excellent book that was recently released on Wallace Neff, and I hope they're not going to put up this picture like the one that you see where it says Wallace Neff Heritage Bar, and this black and white that you see here from an article from a whatever.
Is that from a newspaper article?
Yeah, and because there's some fantastic pictures in the Wallace Neff book. And that book is available on Amazon right now.
We will pass that information on to them.
Because
I'm sure Mitch would know that. wouldn't
If they're going into this with just a handful of stuff, I think that they can do a great deal of give more credit in a dramatic way to Wallace Neff than what I see so far.
Commissioner Walker?
Oh, also, they talked about changing the name of the building to the Neff Heritage Bar from the Neff Lounge. And I mean, I think they can call it whatever they want, but I think on the plaque, it should still say what the landmark is, which is the Neff Lounge.
I understand your point. I think the Neff Heritage Bar is the bar part, which actually isn't in the lounge. So it wouldn't.
Right, but they said they were going to change the name of the
Oh,
of the
really?
structure from the Neff Lounge to the Neff Heritage Bar.
Well, I'll reach out to them about that because,
I mean, they can call that what they want, it's their bar, but I think that for the plaques, it should still remain.
It comes from us.
see, it's funny because in here it says other possible items to include a book to be available in the lounge. I mean, the lounge is very distinct from the bar at this point, so, okay, we'll,
It says, number 2, rename the Neff Lounge with a new logo and name that pays respect to the history of the building. The new name will be the Wallace Neff Heritage Bar.
okay. Well, that's funny because they use,
Only talking about for the plaque.
okay, only for the plaque, all right.
Thank you.
Well, does the plaque have to come, I mean, when we did the interpretive plan, it was not my thought that they would be changing the historic plaque. Doesn't the plaque have to come back before you?
Well, they were gonna do 2 plaques. They were gonna keep the plaque that we
Which
made
says
up,
the lounge?
which says the Neff
Okay.
Lounge, and that would be on the east side, but then they're gonna create a new plaque
All right.
for the north side.
But is the new plaque going to have the City of Ojai's design and everything? Is it a City of Ojai historic plaque, or is it something in addition that they're doing? Okay, well, let's just talk with them and find out, because, you know, if it's their own plaque and they're keeping our traditional one, I don't know if, you know.
I would like to give that more thought, because if it is a historic plaque and it is a city historic lounge, I think
It would have to come back here.
it should come back here
That's
for
what I'm
us to
thinking, too.
review it for you know, historic accuracy and.
Yes,
Yeah.
all right. Well, we'll ask some questions and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Item 7, Ojai Day.
Well, here we are back again.
Yes.
With Ojai Day Planning, and,
I'll volunteer.
you,
So will Rose Boggs.
okay.
We all will.
Hawaii.
You're not leaving again.
So what would you like staff to assist you with? And we always, it's pretty standard how this goes. We have a checklist in the
Yes.
back. Is there anything, any modifications to the checklist or anything?
I'd just like to point out all the fans and the materials that are still in the jail, as I was instructed to leave them there last year. So everything is,
And are we going to order more T-shirts for the stripes prisoner?
are we out of T-shirts?
I didn't even know
I
that
think-
you had T-shirts.
Oh, yes, we
Like
do.
convicts.
I think that Patricia Clark Donor looked into that and got shirts, and then she wasn't able to get any more. So it might be best if you just yourself went out, and how many need a shirt? Just 2? And maybe you could do something yourself.
I hope she's not teaching you,
Rick
telling
has
you.
his from the last time he was incarcerated.
That's what I was going to say. I was hoping she's not telling you to go get incarcerated.
So, anyway, but also, I have already had a conversation with Dwayne Bowers, and he will be happy to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and get the police car there at 6 o'clock, and then go on and do his business with the hay rides or whatever.
Terrific,
So-
terrific. So we have the checklist here, and I would like the other commissioners to be ready next month to sign up for times.
Can I make a request? Can we
Yes,
have
you may.
flashlights that work?
Okay.
Our flashlights,
Yeah.
the batteries probably ran out 2 years ago, and
I will provide new
they're
flashlights.
pretty lame.
Get LED.
I will provide new flashlights
Okay.
this year.
Oh, also, it says here, pickup fans and 2 easel signs. Do we actually use easels still?
Yes, they're in the jail. Everything. Because I think we got tired of hauling them back to the city hall attic. I'm serious. So,
And then the other thing I was going to do was go to the police department and get some badges to hand out to kids.
okay, terrific.
Are there little stickers that look like badges?
No, real
Okay.
ones.
Well, I didn't know if they were plastic or the stickers. Okay.
Stickers.
Are there any other suggestions? Volunteers?
The last item that says
Cold
Monday
drinks.
after Ojai Day, and I think Dwayne Bowers is the only one that we write a thank you letter to now.
Thank you. Item 8. Ojai sites, our historic sites of merit list. What we wanted to do was to open a discussion about how we could develop the list further. We should be adding sites to it, and we should be strategizing about how we could strengthen some protections in the permitting process for the sites on this list. Director Wold?
I was just going to say, so one of the things that we're doing is that we're working with this ad hoc committee, as I mentioned previously this evening, with the city attorney on rewriting Chapter 8, Cultural and Historic Preservation. So I think that at this point, we're pretty close to bringing a draft, are we not? I would think that we could hold off this discussion until we bring the draft Chapter 8 before you, and then specifically carve out an evening or some time to talk about, because the
It's
rewrite-
covered in there?
Yeah, the rewrite of the ordinance is pretty comprehensive, and Commissioner Walker's been, and all of us have been working on how far we want to go with preserving those sites of merits, and what we think will be, it is taking a step towards more preservation, and so we want to, what we can actually anticipate getting support for, and those types of things. So I think it's a conversation worth having. I think we have modified it to include some preservation for instance, demolishing. So if somebody wanted to get a demo permit for a structure that is historic, whether it's landmarked or not, or it's on the sites of merits, that they would have to go through additional procedures. Isn't that how you recall it, Craig?
Yes,
they would have to have it reviewed. So I think we've made some strides that way, and some suggestions, and the city attorney has vetted that. So I think you have if we bring that forward, and I'm not really sure, I talked to him this week about when he was going to be coming forward and working on that proposal. I think you would have, you wouldn't be starting from ground zero. You would have something that the committee has already worked on and the city attorney has already vetted. So you would be able to then work on that and fine tune that process.
What is your expectation for when you
Well, I
think that'll be ready?
it should be. I would think that should be coming in October. When was the last time we met? I was trying to think of this. It's been a while back. I think the city attorney's efforts and energies have been elsewhere of late, and so he's got a long list of priorities he's trying to meet. So I can call him and see whether or not would be available for our meeting in September. I don't know if you want to do that the same meeting when you have a landmark. That may if we are actually going to take action on the landmarking, I'll probably have him come anyway to that meeting. But if you want to have him present at that meeting, I'm sure we can get a draft. If nothing more, we could carve out that portion that we're trying to change on the sites of merits. But we've been working on definitions and procedures and what needs to come back before the historic preservation. Similar to the work permits, we've been talking about trying to make more an administrative work permit where, certain things can be done, at staff level, or quickly, so a person doesn't have to wait month to month, since we only meet once a month. Trying to come up with some ideas of how we can still get a review in without really burdening the applicant with unnecessary time constraints. So we've all been kicking all these different thoughts about, and I think it's time for us to bring it to you, and so it's going on, and then it can be fine-tuned through the commission, all-inclusive, instead just through the committee.
Well, I look forward to seeing that, because this is something I've been talking about for a while, strengthening the protections for the places on our sites of merit lists. Otherwise, what is the list for? And so I'm very interested in this, and I'm interested in the work that the ad hoc committee has been doing. Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, I talked to Matt, and he said that he thought our committee should meet one more time and then finalize our recommendations to the full commission. So I don't know if he had a timeline in mind, but that was what he said. And I thought we might want to form a committee, a subcommittee, to see if there are any properties that we might want to add. For example, I know that the one house on Signal Street, that they're not going to be making the changes, and I think that's one that we should look at anyway, because it is a Fred Hummel Jr. house. It is one of the nicest ranch-style homes, so it might be one
Now,
that
I have been through that house, with all this work that's been going, for the last 8 or 9 months, and so there were things that were taken out of the house and distributed or sold, so the interior is not intact.
Right. So I don't even know what the integrity of the place is now. I mean, it might not be enough to put it even on this list. I don't know, but.
The actual structure itself is still very much intact, but, the murals that were there are gone, and there's different things that have been, were sold. I never saw it when it was in its heyday, but but I have been in the structure, and, I think the pool's been demoed out of it. There's different things. But yes, I think that a subcommittee would be good to talk about.
What is going to put?
There might
Sorry,
be
what?
other structures, like I know there's a couple of Quonset huts.
There's a couple of us that know what you two are talking about, because somebody sent me the memo, but a lot of people don't know. They're talking about 1105 Signal.
Talking about 1105 Signal, yes.
Up at the very end where they built the climbing wall.
Right.
You remember the
But
climbing wall?
that house was
So
originally.
Sorry.
any
my
chance we
apologies.
can get an update on we think's going to happen with that? I know
Okay,
it's been pulled.
So they've
Should
withdrawn
we-
their application. They've withdrawn their application to move forward with a design review permit and the comprehensive rebuild of the property. And my understanding, although I know they've withdrawn their application, my understanding is that they were going to sell the property, but I think that's just hearsay. I mean, as far as I know, that
Okay.
they're going to conclude that property. They're not going to work on it.
We can take this up at
Yes.
information items.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Hill?
Yes. In regard to this, we have an ad hoc committee now that works on the Ojai Sites of Merit list. And this is the only time that we really can engage the entire commission as for input for future additions to the list. And before we just lop it off here, I think that it would be good. Commissioner Walker already mentioned one house on the list, and we're talking about the what is it, the Procter and Gamble house up there on Signal. But I would like to have us just float out some possibilities that would be then discussed by the ad hoc committee. Yeah, in other words, some nominations. It doesn't have to be that formal. We're just discussing it. But some possible.
At this time? Any of the commissioners have suggestions for enlarging this Historic Sites of Merits list?
Could somebody make just a really brief statement about how these properties qualify? Is it the same as a landmark property, or does it have possible looser definitions?
I think, in my mind, they're all potential landmarks. And so we compiled this list at the request of City Council. That it's not in any way a complete list. In my mind, it was always a list that could grow, and that also it could get smaller if one of them or some of them were to become landmarks. It'd become landmarked. So I see the Historical Sites of Merit list as something that is alive and changing. And
Right, but I guess what I kind of mean is, it seems like a lot of these on here, these possibilities are buildings that have something special about them that relates to something. So in other words, if somebody has a house that was built in the 1920s, if it doesn't have, if somebody famous didn't live there, or it's not the only one of its kind, might that not qualify?
I think you would need to go through the criteria that are listed in the city's ordinance.
As you would for a landmark.
As you would, because basically
Right.
you're talking about a building that should be designated as a historic structure and might be a potential landmark, because CEQA, for example, has some coverage for potential landmarks as well. So that was the idea behind it, is just to take what are the historic houses. Because when you start talking about all houses 50 years old or older, then that's not even realistic, and it causes people to be concerned who really needn't be concerned,
Right.
because their house really doesn't have any historic value. So it's just an attempt to kind of narrow down, and you're not always going to catch them all in the first pass. There's other ones as time goes along that come forward. And we're not talking about a huge, any kind of real limitations on these houses, just some kind of review process.
review process.
If they come up for a demolition permit, we'd take a look at it instead of just saying, oh, it's an old house, it can be demolished.
I think that's the important part of it, is that we all know that there's certain things that are done ministerial in the city and might not come under heightened review unless there's a policy that says they have to. And so one of the things about providing a list like this is it's a really good resource for staff to look at it and say, hey, we're issuing this, we're doing that, whatever it is. And this is on the sites of merits, so we're going to ask for this. I'll give you an example. Is I think the AT&T building is not a landmarked building.
Which one?
The AT&T building, the one.
Across from the
AT&T.
museum.
Right,
Yeah.
Telephone.
Oh, it's Pacific Telephone?
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, it was, but I think it's AT&T Wireless now, correct? Okay, so, but because I believe it's listed on here, we did work with them when they were going to re-roof it, and they had to have a historian that talked about the roofing and then talked about what the roofing they're putting on. And so it was kind of even though it's just a roofing permit, we kind of made them go through the exercise of demonstrating that they're not destroying a characteristic or that would be integral to the age or the designation of the building. So I think it's really important that this list be kind of a living, breathing, dynamic list, so that staff has the benefit of your knowledge, so that when things are coming in, we can look at the list and we say, we should look and see. And, especially when you're talking about character defining, even if it's not landmarked, there's lots of times things we can do. And in this case, the applicant was just more than willing to work with us and provide the information to us, and we did it in a timely manner. So, it worked really well, but, obviously, we don't want to have things fall through the cracks and then somebody come later and go, oh, oops. So I think it really is valuable and needs to be periodically updated.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker?
And also, the council just recently gave the commission some funding to do some more in-depth Phase 1 reports on some of these properties. And so this gives us a list that we can prioritize and say, well, where do we want to put our energies to use that? And so...
Or possibly move them off the list to landmarking?
or move them off the list. So I think that's another valuable reason for this. And I think that we need to talk about that, how we're going to maybe select those properties that we do want to do Phase 1 reports on. But that's maybe a different night, but maybe at the next meeting we could,
Yes.
we could prioritize these. And there might be a lot of factors depending whether a house is threatened or a building is threatened, or whether it's something that would be relatively easy to do as opposed to not. We talked about landmarking this building, but in order to do that, you'd need to do a Phase 1 report on it. And it is on the list, so
Yes.
we need to have that conversation.
So I think we will have that on the agenda next month, and the commissioners have this time to go through the Historic Sites of Merit list and, in their own minds, prioritize which 2 properties or sites they would like to see us push forward, because we need to, council was kind enough and to grant those funds, and we need to move on that. Commissioner Hill?
Yes, I would like to just state that just even from tonight's meeting, the fact that we have significant buildings that are utilizing a style of architecture, namely the adobe style, that the both the Aliso adobe and the Ojai Avenue adobe be considered just because of their uniqueness, that they would qualify for a Site of Merit list. And I also feel that this particular property has been kind of front and center with a lot of discussion in Ojai, and that's at 520 Foothill Road, the Estelle Clark house. Definitely should
Chase
be,
House.
yeah, the Chase House. That house should definitely be under consideration for.
And to add to that, Cindy has, because she went through the landmarking process with the O.W. Robertson House,
Right.
in moving to the Estelle Clark or the Chase House, had said the same thing, that she wanted to pursue landmarking for that house. So getting it on the Historic Sites of Merit is, I think, a great
Right.
step towards doing that.
And what was neat tonight to hear the Quinns, who are very active along Foothill Road, they visited our house for the museum's Feast on History dinner, and they talk up history along Foothill Road. And the fact that they're on their second house to try to landmark it, and the fact that Cindy Convery would like to do the same. I don't know of many communities that have people that will stand up for their properties twice.
Thanks. I think they're both good ideas. Item 9, future agenda items.
All right, so let's walk through September 10th, which is your next meeting. So we have the nomination of Historic Preservation Award recipient again, so we'll bring that forward. The 307A East Aliso Street. Talk about Ojai Day. The work permit for the Ojai Valley Inn and Spa, the Neff Lounge, that is coming back before you again. So let's be a little clear about that, with the new building that's proposed for the enclosed outdoor dining, that's currently there. They're removing that outdoor dining area that's in front of the NAF. And they went before Planning Commission with a conceptual review of this building, which has since been changed. It was a very modern building with a butterfly roof, has now been changed. They also need to come before you for the NAF because they're removing that patio that was attached to the NAF in the 1990s. So removing it, and they need to bring the front facade back to the way it was, and that's a work permit. So they will be coming before you on the 10th. And so I want to make sure we don't get this agenda too, and that's, as we know, we like to have a lot of time when we're talking about the NEF, we're talking about landmarking. Those are something we don't want to be constrained for time for. So I think maybe the sites of merit and the ordinance you might want to push off to October 8th to make sure you have plenty of time to talk about the NEF. And just to let you know about this work permit for the NEF, Mitch is doing the historic report, and when you look at pictures of the NEF and you see that front patio, and you take them from far away, you just see the front patio and the NEF. And when you're up close, you can see there's detail in the stucco. Okay, and if you go in, you can see the members that are coming out, if you all are aware, if I'm ringing a bell at all. So I have made it very clear to them that they are to provide specifics to you when they come before you in September as to, one, how those there's actual wood members that come out of the stucco, how much stucco is coming off the wall, how those members are being, how they're removing them, where they're going, and then of course they're removing this 1994, which we don't care about the 1994 addition, but we want them to be very clear about what they're actually doing to the front facade and how they're repairing it back to the way it was before, including there's like some little fenestration or whatever you want to call it up on the front. So I've asked them to be very clear, provide very clear details, and not to have conceptual drawings, and to have, very detailed architectural drawings so that you'll know exactly what they're doing. And if there's any other direction you like to give, for me to give to them, I'd be happy to do that, but I want to make sure you understand that I have given them clear direction that we need to know how much stucco, what's happening here, pictures of what it looks like, not just from far away, but underneath so you can see the details, and then maybe in between now and September, you might want to find your way out there and kind of look at what the front looks like, so that but I am trying to get a
Right.
fully vetted package for you.
Thank you so much.
Can I get the timeline now on that? You said, you were talking about the September 10th meeting.
That's-
And you said that in order to give us enough time for this NEF lounge,
Well, I'm just saying that, generally speaking, we run about 2.5 hours on these meetings. And I think that so to figure out 2.5 hours, if you're doing the nomination of historic award recipient, I would think that might take 20 minutes. Discuss Ojai Day might take 15. That leaves the bulk of 2 hours between the landmarking and the NEF lounge. I think adding anything more to it is too much in one night, if we're thinking about a 2.5 hour meeting.
Thank you.
all right, I misunderstood. I thought
That's
you
right.
were moving the
Commissioner Akins?
NEF lounge thing.
Okay, so what you're describing on the enclosure that they're going to put there, having just been to the NEF Lounge, we asked, and we were told that that was going to be out where the dining is now and extended to the lawn. Are you saying that building is going to be attached to the front? Oh, okay.
I'm saying
Where's the,
I'm saying that building is a separate design review permit going before the planning commission, but they want to take off he has a name for it, but I would just call it a patio. There's a tiled roof structure out in front of the NEF that was done in 1994.
in the trees?
No, it's just right, it's
That
on the.
little building that's there?
No, it's
coming out the
actually
door
a
to the
covered
right?
porch against the NEF Lounge.
Oh, okay.
That was not original. That is not original. The NEF
Okay, right in the front, right as you come out.
Right
Oh,
attached
okay.
to the
Right.
building.
That is
Above the
not,
fountain and everything else.
yes,
Yeah.
right where the fountain is. That is not
They want to
original.
take that out.
Yes, sir.
Because they do want people to be rained on.
No, they want to just bring the NEF back to the way it was originally. The front facade the way it was originally.
Well,
Okay.
we'll see that next month.
Yes.
So it's not for discussion tonight.
No, I just want to make sure you understand that the agenda here, that I
Right.
just want to make
Okay.
sure we don't pack it too much and then people feel pressure.
Gotcha.
I want to make sure we have enough time.
So in September, are we only looking at the overhang, or are we looking at a some kind of design concept for the glass cube out in the front.
No, you'll be looking at only the Neff building.
Okay.
Commissioner Walker?
Yeah, because one of the issues that I raised at the Planning Commission meeting was this whole thing of the context of the landmark, and you have to look at the context of what new additions are being put around it, and how that will impact or detract from the historic significance of the building. And that was one of the things that catches your eye when you see that new design, is that the eye will be drawn towards the modern building, and I don't know what they have in mind now. And it says right in the city's ordinance that the changes on the property, new construction additions, need to be evaluated for their historic compatibility. So for myself, I don't agree with the fact, I mean, if they were to build that maybe down by the pool or something where it's not actually there, but I think being right on that patio and the fact that the historic context has always been, you walk out those doors of the Neff Lounge and you're looking out at the golf course. Yes, they have a open air seating, but you still get that open look. And the fact that now that patio will be boxed in with another building, I think that we do have to look at that and how it's going to affect this landmark. And what's the next step to, once you get that building in, to come back and cover up the patio, and then just the Neff Lounge will be nothing. It'll be just buried inside. And you do have to consider the cumulative effects of what they're doing. They're little by little changing this whole area around it, attaching things, building it, so that pretty soon that landmark won't be there anymore. And I think we owe it to the buildings and to the people of Ojai to take a look at what they have in mind. I don't think you can just say all we're looking at is the structure itself, and whatever happens around it is not considered. That's not in the Secretary of the Interior standards. It's not even in our own law.
Well, I don't really have an answer for you other than I believe that that is historically the way it's always been done, and that I'll be happy to take that back to the city manager if he wants to change the policy on those types of things, or maybe this is a policy decision for city council. But as far as I know, the entire property there for the inn is not landmarked, just the Neff is, and that's what requires, I mean, they certainly have, I mean, I don't know, it's not, this is kind of out of my wheelhouse, you know, you want to have that conversation about how the ordinance reads. I think that I need to address that to the city attorney, because as of now, the way they've been instructed is that the design review permit is for the new structure, and it has nothing, nor is it attached to, and this is how they've presented it to the Neff Lounge. But that certainly touching the Neff Lounge requires a work permit. So, I mean, I'd be happy to take that and inquire it back up to the city attorney, but again, you know, that's just, you know, it's a policy decision, and that would be something that I would have to bring back to the city manager for him to say, if everything on a landmark, you know, if the landmarking the Neff then somehow encompassed the whole entire property. You know, it's just kind of something.
I don't think that we are saying that, but I think we are saying that the immediate surroundings do affect that landmark.
I understand, and I see your point of view, but it's not something that I personally can direct them. I would have to bring that up to the city manager.
When will the updated scheme be going to planning?
It is going
for review?
It is going in September too.
Okay. And so we'll get notice of that.
Yeah, you'll get notice of that. I mean, without getting into details with something that's not been agendized, I'd be happy to send, I mean, it's public information once it comes in the department. I would be happy just to send you electronic copies of what they're proposing. I can do that tomorrow, if you'd like, just so you guys can all take a look at it. And you certainly, like
And of course, the commissioners are free to come to the
Yes,
desk.
and I was going to say, like any other member of the public, you can provide comments to me that I will provide to the city, to the planning commission. You know, that's always a way for you to have a voice. But that's kind of where we are. And I'd be happy. I'll write a note to myself to send them all out to you tomorrow so you can take a look at what they're doing. It's pretty minimal, but it still is a glass enclosed box, you know what I mean? I mean, it no longer has any kind of distinctive architecture to it as it did before, but,
Thank you.
yeah.
Councilman Blatz, I'd like to invite you to the podium.
Thank you. It's always such a pleasure to be the liaison to the HPC. Everybody's way of deliberating and your breadth of knowledge and the breadth of history and is just so impressive to me. And truly, our community is so fortunate to have this commission as kind of the stalwart of making sure that we protect our history. It's so important that we do. And I would like to ask that you send me a copy of whatever's going on there too, if you would, please. So thank you all very, very much on behalf of the council. I don't have any other things to say except it was nice to see you at the ceremony for the Neff Lounge. I thought it was a very nice get-together. I don't think they destroyed the Neff Lounge as much as they could have. I thought that there was a certain amount of vibrance in the room that had been lacking for years, which I liked. But it's definitely different. Definitely different.
Thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure. Craig?
Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, you're discussing this whole thing with the vacation rentals and
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed is a common kind of an incentive for people to landmark their homes that you see in other governing entities is that they will allow those people to open it up as a bed and breakfast because it allows the public to come in and stay there and enjoy it and get a feel for the historic home. So in your deliberation, I know you're going to have a lot of issues, but maybe that would be something that you could put into the mix as to whether if a person has a landmark, they might be given the ability to open it up to the public in that way.
Well, I don't necessarily think that because it's a landmark that should give them more of a right to have it a bed and breakfast. I really think that anything like that, if it's a landmark, would have to come before you guys. I don't know whether we're going to specifically, identify landmarks as being properties that are suitable for short-term rentals or not. But I think that the short-term rental issue has a number of different little twists to it that I brought up in open session before, and it caused some problems. I mean, the short-term rental of a bedroom, for instance, is very hard to try to police. But where you have somebody that's an absentee owner and never lives in the house and has it only for short-term rental, that's pretty easy to police. And I see a significant difference between somebody that wants to rent out a guest house on a short-term rental basis versus somebody that wants to leave their home and rent out the whole home on a short-term basis. And then the other thing is I don't know how much of the short-term rental inventory is taking away from our affordable housing inventory. What I've seen mostly is that the short-term rentals are fairly expensive, whether or not they're being rented for more than a month or less than a month, at least the ones that I've gone to look at. I just think we have to make our decision and get it done so we can begin to collect the transient occupancy tax. I mean, all of the people that are doing it are clamoring at City Hall, where do we pay our tax? But it's illegal for them to have it now, so you can't collect a tax on an illegal activity. So I think we just need to decide what we're going to do and get it done. But I think that any kind of a historic type of, particularly if it's been landmarked, I think before anything happens to it, it should come here. Now maybe because it's a landmark, they can charge more to stay in it. But I still think that even though you're not doing anything to it, I think that any time you're affecting the status of a landmark property, it should come before the HPC for comment at least, so that the council can act on it or the planning commission can act on it. And that would go, I think, for anybody that wanted to turn a landmark property into a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No,
Thanks again for all your hard work. I'll see you next month.
thanks a lot. I inadvertently skipped over a couple of items. I think we've already kind of done our ad hoc committee report. And so I'd like to invite commissioner comments at this time. Commissioner Hill?
Yes. I don't know how many of you caught the TV, because on the meeting, I was a city council meeting, that I appeared before. I was the only one in attendance from our commission. And I was appearing on behalf of a neighbor, and I was appearing as a private citizen because I got the memo that we were not to do that if we were appearing as a commissioner. So I appeared before that, and I spoke for about 5 minutes on the situation of a wall that's under a great deal of contention on Foothill Road. And as I progressed through that evening, during those 5 minutes, I was having a very difficult time. I was having a difficult time catching my breath, and people in the audience were ready to catch me if I collapsed up there. But I did get through the whole thing. And I had been having some health issues, and so I began an extensive examination, went through brain scans and MRIs, and all kinds of things, everything imaginable, and still doing that right now. And so I just would like to, and this is what I was trying to do, that the following week, we had a joint meeting here, and I asked if we were going to have the opportunity to do commissioner reports, and because I wanted to let the commission know at that time, but we were a single item event that night. And I would like to just to let you know that I'm going to need to back off on a lot of my activities on this commission. I'll still attend these meetings, and I'll still I'll hang in there for now on the ad hoc committee on sites of merit, but that's about it. I have to take care of myself so that I can last. So if you'll bear with me, I need to give up some of those positions, and you can go through your list and find out some of those, because I need to. That's one thing. I just wanted, these are just an announcement. While we're talking about they're talking about the book that could be available at the Neff Lounge. This book, there's an excellent book on Wallace Neff that's out, and I would heartily recommend that for the Inn to purchase for their retrospective. And also, there's a brand new book out on George Washington Smith that it is now available on Amazon as well. And that's gleanings taken from his from an old scrapbook of his, and it's a very sought after book right now. And still, that book by Walter Bristol is still available on eBay at $69. And so if you wanted to get an important book on the history of Ojai, that one would certainly be it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
What's the name of the Wallace Neff book?
It just says Wallace Neff.
Okay. I was trying to find it earlier.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And the other one, I think it says for the scrapbook of George Washington.
Yeah, George Washington Smith, an architect scrapbook.
That's it.
Well, Terry, you scared me for a minute there. I thought you were going to resign, and you didn't, so I'm happy.
There's so many important things going on right now with our commission, and I think we face some really difficult situations, and there's things out there on the horizon that we need to take care of, and we're as strong as this group of members, and that's pretty strong. So.
Thank you. Museum Liaison Mark Lewis, the floor is yours.
I've got one too.
Thank you, Chairman McCready. At the museum, our new executive director, Wendy Barger, is now on the job. If you haven't had a chance to meet her, stop by the museum, introduce yourself. And while you're there, our current and new exhibit in the main gallery, the rotating gallery, is Sergio's cartoon collection. This is Sergio Aragonis, but it's not cartoons by Sergio. It's his collection, which goes back, cartoons over 100 years old. Some of them are historic, and they're actual cartoons. The original is given him by famous cartoonist Charles Schulz, and there are all kinds of people. It's a fascinating exhibit. And we also have, and Sergio is leading groups, by the way. Check the museum website to give a personal tour from time to time. We also have a Birds of Ojai exhibit, new, and on August 23rd, we are having a Town Talk type event, which will feature a young man from, I think, Pasadena. Anyway, he's a National Birder of the Year or something like that. And Jesse Grantham has brought it in, and Jesse will also be talking about hummingbirds of Ojai, and Kim Stroud will be there with some of her raptors. So anyone who has birds in mind, a week from Sunday from 4 to 6 at the museum, and that should be fun. And we hope to see you there.
Thank you. Commissioner Walker.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention something about our workshop that we took at USC, which was fantastic. We really learned a lot and were exposed to a lot of great instructors, and it's just so valuable for us to be able to go down there and hear from the people who are actually working in the field and who know all about this stuff, how it works. And we had a site visit to the Freeman House, I think it was, by Frank Lloyd Wright, and saw their struggles to get that house preserved. And so there's a lot of hands-on, a lot of instruction. I would like to point out that one of our challenges here in Ojai has always been getting alternative architectural historians to be able to be in the mix. We've talked about that before, how it's healthy to have several people, but it's difficult. And one of our instructors, Sion Winship, is a certified historic architect and does the same kind of thing as these people do. And she also is the president of the Society of Architectural Historians, has run 2 architectural tours up to Ojai from Los Angeles. So she's familiar with the architecture here, and she said she would be willing to be someone. So I can give you her CV here so that there's another person that you can call upon.
Yes, and more on that. I do want to thank council for, again, this year approving the funds for the courses that we take at USC. They are incredibly valuable and have helped us a lot, and so thank you for that. If there are no further comments from commissioners, Commissioner Akins?
One other thing to add to my earlier pitch, we did meet with Kathy Smith. She contacted us. She's the executive assistant for Hank Bankster at the Ojai Unified School District. They have records, fabulous records from what she described going back to 1895, including receipts from work they did for stores early, in Ojai's history that existed. And so she came over to the museum. We met with her for an hour and something and introduced her to different people, showed her collections as well as our library. And so, it's just another way of 2 organizations within the city reaching out to each other to make sure that history is shared, kept, and keep people informed. So that was a nice thing.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Liaison Lewis. Thank you, Director Wold. Thank you, Councilman Blatz.